What's good, guys? A little bit of a different video for you guys in this one. We are going to be reviewing a legit interview for a potential $10,000 per month closing role. I've blurred out names and taken out audio of like private information, so it's going to be completely anonymous. But I want to just give real and raw feedback on everything that I can when it comes to this interview. Let me share with you what I know going into this. I know both of these guys. I know they were both at the event that I hosted in September. This guy on screen is a sales manager for this company. The other guy is the applicant. The job posting wasn't extremely detailed, but it was advertising a $5,000 to $10,000 per month opportunity for a service/software hybrid high ticket offer. They do about 140K a month, give or take. They've grown pretty fast. They have an existing sales team, and that's pretty much it. What I do know, the guy interviewing for this role, he's in search of his first high ticket closing role. He has a lot of door to door experience, a lot of high earning months in door to door. And so he's vetted in sales, but new to the high ticket stuff. I already know the outcome of this interview, and I'll tell you as you watch through the video. I'll probably hint at it as we get through it. So watch through the video and we'll go from there. But first thing right off the bat, let's just address the background, right? So obviously face is blurred, but if I'm looking at this guy's background, actually move me over here. If we're looking at background, super clean. Okay, this is the manager, right? I don't know, it looks like a kitchen, a plain wall, a window, clean house. Like there is nothing wrong with his background. He's in a quiet space. So he's presenting himself well. Let me play a little bit.
What's happening, brother? How are you?
This meeting is being recorded.
Let's go.
Okay, I left this little snippet unblurred. The rest of it is going to be completely blurred. But I just want to look at the background. Do you notice a difference between the two backgrounds? Which one seems a little bit more professional? Which one seems a little bit more established? I'm all for trying to make your space fancier and better with lights and stuff. I think when done right, it helps you. When done right, it can benefit you. When not done right or not pushed like fully through, it can kind of come off as like half effort. So me personally, this light in the background here, I don't really love it in the way that it exists. Plain wall in the background, nothing wrong with that. I would say just right off the bat, and this is completely visual, right? I would probably try to frame the camera, make sure you're taking up most of the space in the video frame. I would probably get rid of the light or maybe add another one and balance it out and figure out something just a little bit cleaner. And I can't even recall what is in the background here, but make sure you're just very intentional. If you have nothing behind you except one or two things like a light in a poster or a piece of art, be intentional with what that is because it says a lot about you. I have one of these lights, bro. They're like $10 or $15. So like, it's not really going to do too much for you. And especially depending on the type of role that you're applying for. This role, lights and stuff, it's completely fair game. They sell it to a younger audience. But if you're going for those higher roles, selling to more sophisticated buyers, they might not like that. So just be aware. But anyways, let's get into the interview. I'm going to play and pause and just leave comments on anything as we get through it.
What's happening, brother? How are you?
This meeting is being recorded.
Let's go. Long time no see.
I know. How you been?
I've been good, man. I can't complain. Made that transition over here. It's been cool. Yeah, how have you been? Good,
man. I've actually been watching your B-Stud stories, wishing I was in Austin.
Yeah, where do you live at again?
Missouri.
Okay. How long you been in Missouri?
That's where I grew up. I got family in Dallas, but never.
Okay. I kind of messed up the pause there. But he said, I've been watching your story, wishing I was in Austin. Good. I like it. Shows he pays attention, knows about the guy he's talking to. Good. I got to move this around here. Where's the best spot for my face? Here we go.
Really gone to Austin much.
Yeah, dude, a lot of guys from Dylan's community moved over to Austin.
Yep, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's cool. Did you like the city when you were
Oh yeah,
here?
it was when I was there for that meetup. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I fell in love with
You think
Austin.
you'll stay in Missouri though?
Yeah, because I grew up on 40 acres out here,
Hmm.
and I have a couple acres back in the corner where I'm going to build a house, and whenever I get a family, start a family. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So it was just family and stuff. Dallas, cool.
All right, so right off the bat, I know both of these guys, but I want to keep it objective here. The interviewer, he is more of like an up tempo guy. I just up the speed on this, so it's going to go a little faster. But he's very outspoken, extroverted, easy guy to talk to. And I know that the person interviewing is a little bit more like myself, a little bit more calm, reserved, um, more particular about the words that you say. So keep that in mind and like pay attention to the dynamic where it feels like the conversation is leaning towards one person's frame or another. Uh, so far here, nothing to hate on.
And I was gonna ask you. I don't even ask. What? So are you cruising on a roll right now, or you're just kind of looking for a roll right now?
no, so I actually, at the Austin trip, I joined Dylan's community, and
Okay, nice.
then that next week or that following week, I put my 2 weeks in at my in-person job, and then once I quit, I went and traveled Europe for a month, and then now I'm ready to hop on a roll.
Sick. That's super sick.
Okay, so when someone asks you like, "Are you in a role right now?" I would just be very cautious. It's all about perception. It's all about what they think of you, despite what you're currently doing or what you want to be doing. Um, One thing that I know, being a sales manager running a sales agency, is like sometimes that like digital nomad travel archetype can kind of like not be what somebody's working for. So I'm not saying lie. I'm not saying don't tell people about your Europe trip. I would just say when you are talking about taking time off, um, just make sure that you're presenting it in a way where it's like not like that's going to be something you do really often, but like you are eager to get back at it, and he did it in this case.
So you weren't in the community prior? Like you just followed Dylan, or?
Yep. I had followed Dylan for a while. I'd been wanting to get into remote. Was tired of driving around town all day, spending gas money, and just being out in the heat and cold weather. And so I wanted to get into remote so I could have more freedom on where I can live.
Yeah. Remind me, what kind of sales were you doing prior?
So I don't know if you've heard of. It's a some nationwide gutter protection gutter company.
Mm,
I was selling maintenance-free gutter protection, keeping people off ladders. That was the main selling point
okay, that makes sense. Gotcha. And then you were doing that how long?
for about 2.5 years.
Wow, okay, that's a minute. Yeah, and then I guess like for you, so as far as staying in sales, what kind of made you want to stick with the sales? Because I know you were like, I want to get out of this industry, but I want to, be able to, not be in the heat of the AC.
Right.
So at least the, the in-person industry. Yeah, what kind of drew you to like want to stick in sales?
Well, one, the money. I mean, it blew my mind how much money you can make just taking calls or going to people's houses, whatever version of sales you're doing.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of money in sales, and that kind of what intrigued me. And then also I had
So like in high ticket sales, I could see that this answer and this question being kind of like a trap, bro. In high ticket sales, like people want to hear that you're here to make money. Like it's very performance based. I mean, most of it's 100% performance based. Setting is a different story, but closing 100% performance based. Like in the high ticket space, you can be more upfront about you wanting to make money. And that's why when we work on resumes and stuff, we tailor a resume completely different for high ticket than we would for like a corporate tech sales, medical device sales job. So I just want to note that because he said the first thing is the money, but let's keep it going.
I love learning about psychology and why people make decisions and why people do what they do. So, and I've also realized sales is applicable to almost everything in my life. So,
Yeah, 100%. For sure. And so for you, like, what is it that you're looking for in a new role? Like, obviously, remote, you can take calls anywhere. But is there any like particular, you know, like, because like there are different types of high tier roles. Like, there's I take a Zoom call every hour or so with a business owner. There's people that are banging phones. There's different like types of, I guess, like roles. So for you, like, are you looking for any type of role in particular? Are you pretty much open to anything that's remote? Like where?
I also want to add this on about the role, just so you have the context. This is it's a closing role, but it's a little bit of a different closing role. It's not just all inbound. It's a little bit more full cycle, a little lower, like mid ticket, but it's more volume based. So most closing roles are not like this. So just to add that in here.
Where are you at with that?
I'm kind of keeping my options open at the moment, not being too hasty and jumping on something because I want to make sure that I'm happy with what I'm doing.
Perfect answer right there.
Because like if I don't believe in what I'm selling, then I'm not going to sell well.
100%.
So and also like my family time is important. So obviously I'm willing to put in the work and do what needs to be done, but I also want to have the flexibility to spend time with my family and do the things that I need to do in my personal life.
100%. You don't want to be a work slave.
Right.
All of your, yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. And so so how long ago, you said you traveled Europe, you got back. How long have you kind of been looking for a role?
I've been actively applying for about 2 weeks now.
Okay. And then like, I'm assuming you had a couple of interviews, yeah?
Yeah, I've had probably three interviews.
3 interviews. Okay. As far as the companies that you've spoken to or spoken with, was there any particular reason like you didn't want to move with them, or you felt like they didn't kind of move forward with you?
The only reason I hadn't, because it was with a day trading offer, and I don't know that much about day trading, and I'm not against learning it, but I just wasn't sure how well I'd be able to sell something that I know zero about.
That's fair. Yeah, 100%.
So for something like that, this is I'm not gonna say it's a trick question, but it's a question where like you have the opportunity to answer a lot of different ways, and how you choose to answer says a lot about you and how you're going into things. So I probably would not. I wouldn't mind the transparency around not having as much interest in day trading or trading, but doubting your ability because you don't know how to learn something is kind of not really the angle I'd want to take. Maybe potentially talking about the learning curve associated with it instead, showing that you are still capable if you put your mind to it, but you would rather focus on something that you already kind of know. I think that might be a little bit of a better angle there.
Okay. Yeah. So just to kind of go over like briefly the role here. So it is high ticket sales, but it's not a B2B like Zoom call ultra high ticket. It's more of a higher volume, where you just kind of like stack revenue from like, just like less expensive price things. So like you could sell anything from.
I'll add this in. Interviewer manager is also a little bit newer to the company. So he's like literally was thrown into the fire, needed to start hiring to scale the sales team. So that's why it might sound like a little bit shaky on his end.
I mean, as low as we don't want you to start slinging these, but like 129 a month, I mean, the most common one is like a 647 plan, all the way up to, I mean, you can sell, 1500 in one sitting. But we're selling to salesmen, car salesmen, and so it's a bit more like B2C.
That right off the top of my head, if this role didn't come recommended through a trusted community, trusted source, something like that, I would be immediately like yellow or red flag at those price points. There's not really much in the high ticket space that you can sell for that price point and make really solid money under the traditional high ticket structure with like a, I don't know, 10% commission or something. Now this company is a little bit different. The role of the sales rep's a little bit different, and the payment is a little bit different, which they make it work. But if I were in just any other interview and they're telling me the price of their service is like at most 1,500, that would be like really, really big red flag for me.
And essentially, like we provide all the leads, so like you're not having to self-gen or anything like that. Everybody's opting into either ads or referrals or whatever it could be. With that being said, though, it's just like you have a list, you dial, you sell. How do you feel like you would perform in that type of environment? And do you feel like that is something that you would like, or are you mainly looking for something where it's like a little bit more slower paced Zoom call type of sales?
So these are warm, like I'm dialing people that opted into an ad?
Correct. Yeah. So they typically, when you call, they already know what who is, which is the name of the company. They're typically already using Facebook Marketplace, which is what we sell. Just helps automate their listings over to Facebook Marketplace for them.
Just so you guys know, they're selling a service/software that helps car dealers or car salesmen list their cars on other platforms automatically, and it's like I think it's a monthly subscription.
And so yeah, they're typically very knowledgeable about like what we're selling and who we are prior to calling. We're not calling like just random people and getting hung up on all the time.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, I have no problem doing that.
Okay. And then yeah, do you have any experience or background in the car sales space or not really?
Not really in the car space. No, I have an uncle who does it and talked
Okay.
a little bit to me about it, but not really.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. And it's not super complicated. I transparently have no background in the car sales space either. I mean, but it's like with anything, you just build a gap. They want to sell more cars. They're at X amount. They've been X amount of cars for X amount of months, and they need to get X amount of cars. And if they do nothing, nothing changes. And so yeah, I mean, it's a pretty typical sales conversation. For you, like in sales, what do you feel like your biggest weakness is as a salesman?
This is a tried and true interview question. And it's also one of those, all these questions on interviews they're not tricks. They're not like setups, but they kind of are. It's like how you answer these can really manipulate the perception that somebody has over you and what you're capable of doing. So when someone says, "What's your biggest weakness?" Actually, if I recall right, he answered it pretty well. But actually, let's watch through this for a sec.
A good question. Well, it's kind of changed throughout the years. So when I first started in sales, my biggest weakness was the presentation, and going from introduction into and keeping someone on track and throughout the process, and not letting them get thrown off guard. But throughout the 2 years of just putting in the reps, I learned how to, and also like the objection handling fed into this. I was getting all these objections that came from marketing, just like bad marketing tactics, and people were thinking they would get something that they weren't. And then I would have to deal with those at the end of the call, and then I started incorporating those into my presentation, and then my presentation ended up pre-handling all these objections, and so that became my strength. But at first, it was my weakness.
Okay. So I guess like
So that was a good response, but you'll see by the next question from the interviewer why that was not really the response that was ideal for this situation.
now, like what do you feel like your biggest weakness is, if any?
Now I would say just active listening. That's what I work on the most, is like actually listening to what they're saying, but not only what they're saying, what they mean instead of what they say.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And then what do you feel like your biggest strengths are?
Okay, and so the issue with that, active listening or knowing what they mean instead of what they say is, okay, this is your biggest weakness, but I wouldn't say that and then stop talking. I would like add on to it like how you are attempting to get better at that. He might ask it right here, or what you've done in the past to improve this, how you've noticed it's improved. The issue, how he shot himself in the foot earlier, is he talked about his weakness 2 years ago, which in the interviewer's mind, it could be seen as a little bit dodgy. And that's why he asked again, like, what is your biggest weakness right now? He should have said, whatever he said, he should have phrased it in a way where it's like, now this is my biggest weakness, and then this is what I have done, or this is what I'm doing to overcome that.
I would say my biggest strength is my ability to connect with people and just communication skills and just my relatability.
Now this is a little bit contradicting, because if your biggest weakness is active listening and your biggest strength is communication skills, that's a little bit contradicting. And I know, having been on interviews before, he was kind of in a oh shoot spot when they asked like the second time around, what is your biggest weakness? So you kind of got to come up with that on the fly. But ideally, you avoid this situation altogether by just like answering the question. Now, this is one of those questions where the guy being interviewed is doing a really good job of not saying too much. It's like when you get in trouble with the law, or like you get pulled over by a police officer. It's like, bro, you don't want to tell them everything under the sun. You don't want to overshare, and you honestly don't want to be speaking more than you need to. You don't want to not be speaking enough, but like, I would just keep it short and sweet. Address something that you're working on, show how you're working on it, and then move on. And make sure that when you are asked potentially the flip side of the question, what's your strength, that it doesn't really contradict like that.
Yeah. So you feel like just like relationship building, quick,
Correct.
like just quickly.
Right, and my work ethic and ability to just figure things out.
Okay, cool. And then yeah, as far as like earnings, so I know you said you made, or like I know you said in sales you can make pretty good money. As far as like your last role, like what were you earning roundabout, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, so I started out within 3 months. I was making 6 figures, so I made 125 last
Okay,
year, and then the year
nice.
before that I made 140.
Okay. And so coming in,
So I know that question, and guys, like, if any of you guys are coming from a corporate background, the high ticket space just is different, bro. Like it's more transparent, it's more results based, it's more straight to the point. Um, it's just how this space goes, man. When you're hiring a contractor, like you don't need someone that's going to be you want someone that's a good culture fit, but you don't need someone that's going to fit like the perfect puzzle piece in your organization for the next 10 years. And you can like predict their growth and how they're going to combine with other departments. And like in high ticket sales, bro, like it is very likely that you have an interview like this, it goes well, and they potentially offer it to you same day. In this case, I know they were doing like 2 or 3 rounds, and some companies will do that. But these companies move fast, man. And a lot of them are more willing to check for the initial red flags. If they don't see it, put you to the test, give you a week-long trial, give you a 10-call trial or something like that.
into a new role, what is, I guess, like the goal for you as far as earnings go?
So per month, as long as I can keep it around 5K plus, then I'd be fine for now, because I'm just trying to replace that in-person income
Yeah.
to get into remote.
So that question also says a lot about your personality. And I would personally, so if you say I would like to be at least above 5K, you're thinking from a perspective of like minimum, where that indirectly says something about the way that you just off the bat think about the income. Um, and I know as an interviewee, you don't want to come on too strong. You don't want to come on like out of touch. Um, but I know a lot of people that probably would have come in, discussed the higher end of the earning potential, because I think it was 5 to 10K on this role, and justified why they want to be there or why they need to be there. So by kind of like setting your expectations a little bit low, it is saying something about you as a performance-based sales rep, no doubt.
Okay.
And build
And
off
then
that.
for you, is there what's the minimum amount of money you can make to like live? Like not.
This is a terrible question to be asked by an interviewer. I know why people ask it. And this is one of the parts of the 1099 remote commission based sales space that it's just the reality of it. When you are 100% performance based with no base, because these companies are, they need to cash flow positive to afford you. It's just the reality. Now, usually when an interviewer asks you this question, it means they are sensitive or they are aware that this role might not be 10K a month from the start. But you definitely want to make sure, like if you're getting asked this question, you definitely want to make sure that you fully understand the picture and why they're asking that question.
Not what you're worth, or like I guess what goal is, but like for you to like not end up on the streets, of
Right.
Missouri. Like what does it look like for you? Yeah.
Right. So for me, the minimum that I would need to make to pay all my bills and everything and make sure I'm good would be around 3 grand.
Okay. Cool. That's super. Yeah. Easy. Okay. Cool. Well, yeah. That's really it. I wanted to ask you, number one, if you have any questions about what this role is. I'll kind of give you a little bit more background overview of the company, and then answer any questions you may have. And then yeah, kind of walk you through like what the next steps look like. But yeah, with that being said, so background on it, is the CEO. He was a salesman.
Okay. Before we get into the background of the questions, I feel like that's like a chapter in the interview. The chapter of just like general questioning is over. And if I had to rate it out of 10 when it comes to just the overall perception of competence and capability from the sales reps end, I would say this is probably maybe a 7. Um, the issue the issue with having a more reserved personality type similar to myself or this gentleman being interviewed is if you pair that with the that kind of like minimum mindset where he mentioned the 5K minimum, or like there were some things that he had seeded in there that kind of showed like I'm not extremely ambitious as to what this could be, but I am like I want to be like secure, and there's nothing wrong with being secure, but it's more of like downside protection than upside potential, which in my opinion, as a sales rep, like you need to join having validation of that downside protection. But if I just like, as somebody who's now watched this interview twice, I am getting the perception that this guy, um, he's not really coming in. He's not looking to come in, or at least this is a perception. It may not be true, but he's not looking to come in and be the top guy. Like he's not looking to come in and make a difference and like get after it and like just be like the guy who leads the charge. Like he's looking to come in and make the money that he needs to make, hopefully make a little bit more, which is just a really fine line that you want to balance because again, guys, sales perception is everything. But let's keep it going.
At a car dealership, he wanted to sell more cars. He started using Facebook Marketplace, but it took 8 years to post a car because you have to take pictures of it manually. You have to put in all the vehicle information. It takes like 10 to 15 minutes. It takes a very long time. And so there, he was looking for a tool that automated it, and there were some out there, but it like caused Facebook accounts to get banned, and it wasn't good. And so essentially, he found this guy that used to work for Facebook Marketplace as a developer, and he developed a tool that automates the listings of all the inventory, but it does it without your Facebook getting flagged or shadow banned. So you still get more impressions, you still get more leads, which is the end goal. And yeah, basically from there he started selling a lot more cars, became the top guy at the dealership, and then he started selling the software, to actual salesmen. And so they've scaled, going between 100 to the best month was 140 thus far. But really solid team, really solid culture, and really great product. Like the guys that use the tool, like kick ass with the tool. Average, cars guys selling an additional, it's like 4 to 9 sales a month. There's some guys that are selling an additional 15, 18 a month. You're a 15 car a month guy, 20 car a month guy, 3 car a month guy. You're doing really, really well. And yeah, so cool. Like as far as the result it actually gets, it's really, really great. Super easy to use. Really, the only time we have customers churn is if they don't actually use the tool, and they may not be, they'll leave into a different type of sales or what have you. But yeah, that's really it as far as the primary thing we sell in. We also sell like websites, and we're going to be releasing like a brand offer soon, which is basically like we help them, build out their Facebook profile to convert more leads, post their sold cars with customers, and teach them how to tag the customers so they're surveying, all the sales guys that we like producing more because ultimately we want to just increase the earning potential of the role as well. But yeah, right now OT is like between 5 to 10K. We want to make it to where it is between 10 to 20K, and you can pull that very consistently. And we're going to be doing that by obviously just releasing, things like that where you can just charge more upfront and get a higher percentage, get more cash collected, and then drop more sales. That's really it as far as details on the role. Why we're hiring is just because we're growing. The company's growing pretty quickly. We have more leads. We need more sales guys to sell the leads, and that's really it. But yeah, any questions on the company, the role, compensation, things like that?
Yeah, so I was going to ask, one, how big the team is currently, and then also what does the call structure look like? Is it 1 call close, 2 call close?
Great question. Yeah, so right now, 1, 2, 3.
That's one of the key, like the core 7 pieces of information that you need to know is the team structure right now. If you guys follow any of my content, I'm really big on making decisions based off the past data, not the future projections of the data. And if I already know, because I think in the job listing they said 140K a month, I need to understand the distribution of commission and what the average might be. And if there is one guy that's like making a ton, like I usually would ask like top and bottom earners, then what is that? There's 4 people on the team and the top guy's making this much. What does that then make the average for the 3 below? And like literally just like running the numbers, go into Google Sheets. So that is a question that 100% you should ask. The next one was the call structure. Not as important to like validate um, the actuality of the offer, but it is good to know. Like it's just a good question to know.
3, 4, 5 team members, not including all men, like sales oriented, not including the back end. If you include like CEO, me, sales manager slash COO, and then from there we have 3 closers that are actively closing. We are hiring one more that's due to start mid-December here. So we'll have another closer, and then we are currently interviewing for one more closer as well. And so yeah, we just had a new closer join. We have one more joining mid-December, and then we're going to be hiring another. But that's the current team size.
Okay, so they have 3 closers now. They do 140K a month. I can't remember if I may have skipped over this part in the video, or it may not have come up yet, but because I watch it, I know they do 25% commission, and that's recurring monthly. So on $140,000 of monthly cash collected times 0.25, that's $35,000 per month in commissions that they're paying out to the sales team. Now, let's say all 3 closers, as it stands, are even in earnings, which I don't think is the case because I know the founder sold, I know this guy sold, but let's just assume for round numbers. That means if the sales reps had sold all of it, they would be earning 11.6K, 67K each per month. So that's definitely not the case. But I would just, that number, I'm saying it's not the case because I know the founder sold a good amount. But this number, like so far, the math adds up, especially if it's on a recurring basis. Now, rerun these numbers, assuming there's 5 closers because they are hiring another in December and there's another one they're looking for. So just for the sake of the example, 140,000 times 0.25 divided by 5, that brings the earnings per month, assuming all 5 closers sold evenly, $7,000 per month. So this is one of those roles where it's a little bit unique. It's not your average high ticket closing job, but for you to get to $7,000 per month, that is a lot of like built up commissions. So the numbers 5 to 10K a month sound like they are accurate, assuming this company can increase lead flow with increased sales team. But I would just absolutely go into something like this, especially at the lower price point, with the expectation that this is going to be a slow burn. You're not going to come in and earn $10,000 your first month unless you take a crazy amount of calls or you just become the next Jordan Belfort. This is something that if they allow it, I would probably look at it maybe part-time. If you're dialing, you can definitely like batch that throughout the day alongside something else. But yeah, always run the numbers, guys. And in my community, I talk about there's like 7 metrics for closers and I think 8 or 9 for setters. If you can get these pieces of data, you can basically validate or invalidate the on-target earning potential compared to what reps are actually making right now.
And then as far as call structure goes, you have 1 call close. So you just dial the leads, get them on the phone, and then cash collect. Because you're not, it's not like it's like a $13,000 product or anything like that. It's, you're collecting $650, $1,000, whatever it may be.
And is it just a flat percentage of the revenue?
Yeah, so you get flat percentage of your cash collected, which is 25%. And then if you cash collect over 20 grand, you get 30%.
All right, could you repeat that again? 5% of cash collected.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, 25%. So 25% of cash collected
25,
is your commission. And then if you cash collect over 20 grand, anything 20 grand or over, then you get 30% of all cash collected.
Okay, cool.
Maybe I was wrong about the recurring commission on that. So if it's just 25%, I would love to dive in, or I'm sorry, if it's just the upfront 25%, I would love to dive into the volume of leads that they're getting inbound every day, and then do the numbers in my head around, okay, if I'm getting this many leads, I'd ask them, okay, for every 10 leads that your like average, your best or average salesperson gets, can you kind of like walk me through some of the numbers of what they would see as far as like pickups, which might vary, demos set, calls closed, because it sounds like they might just close them right there. So like maybe they have this data, maybe they don't, but like the dollar per lead it's a very like, it's a good metric to track, especially for something like this. They might not have that handy, but just like kind of dive into the numbers of like, okay, if I get this many leads, assuming average performance, and I want to be a higher performer, what can I expect? So it's just math, guys.
And then also, how long does it typically take for a new rep to ramp up to your KPIs?
Great.
Good question there. This is one of those questions that could definitely poke holes in the argument for like what they're advertising the role. If they're when I'm on an interview, even now with our sales agency, I'm asking questions around different points of the business or the role that like I'm like cross-referencing and making sure like this adds up, and anywhere there's like a warning signal or like a red flag, I'll go a little bit deeper to make sure that it is sound, because it's better to get this information now than 3 weeks in when you're not doing anything like you thought you'd be doing.
Question. So we just hired a sales rep. Up until that point, I was new to the team, and I've only been here 2 months. So we hadn't hired a salesman in between then because we were testing selling B2B. But now we're primarily selling B2C again to salesmen, and so I don't know exactly. But from what my understanding, because they have.
And that right there is definitely not not like a red flag, but it raises some concern. If they're switching the market, I would be interested to know, okay, you have $140,000. How much of that is new cash? How much of that is under the service that I would be selling? Because it sounds like the company's evolved and sold different things to different people. So I'd really try to understand the makeup of that. And if that 25% is only on that upfront monthly, cash collected, I guess you could say, um, how much of that 140K were the sales reps paid on last month, the month before, that kind of stuff. So this is one of the roles where it's definitely a little bit more difficult to get the full picture because of the lower ticket, higher volume cycle. But I mean, I'm not saying this is a bad role, but I would just make sure you go into it with manageable expectations.
Obviously hired a good amount of salesmen. And then when we switched to primarily selling B2B, some of them left because of that. And now we're selling B2C again. But with that being said, as far as like how long does it take? It's very dependent on the salesman's ability, and so it's just kind of adaptability. Like we've had guys that started, and you get paid every 2 weeks. So they've taken 3K, 4K, 5K, their first week. We also have guys that start and maybe do 1K their first first 2 weeks. And we have guys that start and then maybe do like 1K, right? So it's very dependent, from my understanding, of just your ability to sell, because ultimately it's like that's what it is. It's like high volume sales. So like you'll have the amount of lead, like you'll have pretty much all the leads you want to call. It's really just a matter of like what your closing percentage is and your ability to adapt to the sale and receive feedback and change and get better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't have exact KPIs or numbers on that. If I'm like honest, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
So that answer from the interviewer, because it was so long-winded and a little bit ambiguous, I'm definitely in my mind, it doesn't make me feel more secure in the quality of the role. I know, like I said, I know both parties here. I know a little bit about the company and a little bit about the backstory of the interviewer or the interviewee. And it is a quality role. It is a 5 to 10K a month role. But if I knew nothing about that and I just met this guy for the first time, these guys had obviously met before at the meetup that we had, that would definitely like raise some concerns for me.
And you say high volume. Is there like a minimum requirement of daily calls?
That is the worst part of the entire interview right there. Because the stuff that I was saying before about having this impression of just like not being like an underachiever, but just like doing what I need and being done, that is like solidification of that idea in my head. And I would not be surprised if that question kind of directed the company's decision one way or another. I said I would say it like somewhere in the middle of the recording, but this company ended up going with somebody else. So the structure was, you'll see at the end of the call, they set up another call to do a role play. I actually don't know at all how that role play went, but if I had somebody ask me that for any kind of sales role, part-time, full-time, any kind of sales role, that would definitely raise some concerns in my head when it comes to that applicant. Because the question that you want to hear as an interviewer is like, is there a limit to the calls that I can do? is there a limit to how many people like I can dial in a day? Not is there a minimum? So that is like, especially for a performance-based sales role, I know a lot of people want to do this part-time, and you can, but you just need to be very intentional about the questions that you ask and how you ask them, because I would not be surprised if that really swayed this one way or another.
There's not yet. And so I came on, there was like not a lot of structure before I came on. Like they were just printing cash, and so they weren't tracking like LTV, ad spend. Like I mean, they knew how much ad spend they were spending, but like they're just like, all right, I'm spending this much in ad spend, and this is how much we collected, so this makes sense. So they weren't really tracking anything. So I'm in the works of getting an automated sales tracker that tracks, this is the amount of dollars you made, this is the amount of people you actually spoke to, this amount of people were disqualified, this amount of people actually bought, this amount of people actually call back, and so basically like automating that all out within Go High Level so that, when you just move it, it automates updating the sheet as well as like, punching in however dollars you made. Right now, there's not a minimum. Typically your production and, how many live calls you get is a reflection on how many you dial. We use Wave, which is like an auto dialer, if you're familiar with it, that plugs into Go High Level. So it, basically calls 3 numbers at once. First one that answers, you get on the phone with them. So, it calls a lot of, numbers at once. But yeah, as far as like a specific, how do you say it? Like minimum calls? Not really. But I mean, you should be at least, if you're dialing all day, or like it's a normal work day for you, then I'd say it's like 100-ish is fine. Just because like some of the conversations, if you do get in sales conversations, can take an hour. If you're pushing 1K cash collected, 2K cash, or 1,500 cash collected, or what have you.
If you have a power dialer that calls 3 numbers at once, depending on how old these leads are and how the pickup rate and the interest when you get a pickup, you can call way more than 100 in a day, especially if this is full-time, which I want to say this was more leaning towards a full-time role. But yeah, guys, that question like hurt my heart when I first heard it.
Or even 650, so it's very just kind of dependent, but yeah.
All right. Yeah, that answered all my questions.
Cool. Any other things, or that's really
Okay, that answered all these questions. Now I'm thinking, what is still unanswered in my head? The sales reps' earnings, because there's so much movement in the company selling to this person, that person, different packages, whatever. I want to know. I want more clear data around the current salespeople, what they're doing, how much of that revenue is recurring, how much of that is attributed to the owner. I want to know how much actual opportunity there is, because 5 to 10K a month, like, yeah, we're probably in that range, but that's a big range, dude. That's like literally a 2x, like a 1x or 2x. Like, it's two different things. So I would want to know that. In order to like drive this forward, I would usually ask timeline on when they're hiring. It's like, hey, I know you mentioned you're hiring someone else in December. For this next hire, are you looking out into the new year? Or like, are you strategically looking out into the new year, or are you realistically looking for something also in December to onboard 2 people at once? That's a question I would ask. I would ask, there was a little bit of ambiguity around the ramp time. So overall, like, this is an interview with a company that, he said it in the interview, they scaled really fast. They weren't even tracking their numbers. They just launched ads, started selling, and got to 140K MRR. So this is definitely more of like an entry level closing role. This is one of those where, look, if you're looking for you're looking for reps, you're looking for something to put on your resume, I would jump on this one. Assuming you're not having to step away from something secure, something that you need to make it happen. This could be a decent entry point into the market. Now, obviously, the interviewee, this is his first attempt into high ticket sales. And I would say, if he has money saved up, this is probably worth a shot to be able to say that you've done it, to leverage to go somewhere else. I would not, if I were in a situation where I have wife, 2 kids, mortgage payment, car payment, and bills, and all this stuff I have to pay for, I personally would not take a jump at this role and bet that it's going to net me 10K a month. It sounds like they're a long way out from a genuine 10K a month. If I could comfortably fit it alongside something else and be cool with making 5K a month, I would take the role. So that's just my analysis of it. There's so many roles out there, guys. This one is not a typical high ticket sales role. And if you are in the community, in the hiring channel, you see the frequency and all the different kinds of roles. And I like, if I'm going to jump, I would probably jump for some of this other stuff that's in the hiring channel. But at the end of the day, I always tell people, like, or actually it's just a saying. It's like, time in the market is more important than timing of the market. And so the hardest job you're ever going to have to land in the high ticket sales industry is your first one, because there's two hurdles that you have to get over in this industry. Every single person has to get over them. One, do you have sales experience? Two, do you have sales experience in this industry, or do you have this industry experience? Awesome balloons there. So by just saying yes and getting some results in this job gets you over that second hurdle of, do you have industry experience? Because then on the next one, they don't have to take a bet on you on both of those hurdles. I mean, this guy has sales experience. So like, he's over the first hurdle, but the main hurdle here is going to be, do you have high ticket closing experience? And I guarantee there were applicants to this who did. So once you get over those two hurdles, then your next job, it just gets easier and easier to secure those.
It?
Nope, that was pretty much all I wanted to know.
Beautiful. Okay, so are you available at around?
And if you are that personality type, more similar to myself or this gentleman, a little bit more reserved, relax, lean back, there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to know when to drive the conversation, because towards the end of this interview, we're 20 minutes in, there is no guarantee. And the guy interviewing, the sales manager, started to allude to this to set up the next call, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. So you need to kind of take the initiative to start alluding to that being a possibility. I wouldn't say, when are you free for our next appointment or anything like that, but that's where that question of when are you looking to hire comes into play, or starting to just like ask questions around the next steps.
On this time tomorrow?
Let's see, what time is it? I had an interview at, let me double check the time on that one. I think it was 5 o'clock. So I think I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, so next steps is basically, I am going to later this afternoon get you over a call recording and a rough script. That way you can just kind of watch and see what the sales look like what our, kind of processes, what the sales conversation kind of looks like. And then from there, we'll hop on a quick call. It'll only take like 15 minutes, just a quick role play call. We want to see how quickly you adapt, and can pitch us based off of just somebody else pitch and having a base script. And then, yeah, from there, that's kind of like the second portion of the interview. Then we kind of go through all our applicants, based off of how they perform on the initial interview, and then the mock call, and then we schedule like final interviews with the CEO after that point. But yeah, that cool with you?
Yeah, that's cool.
Beautiful. All right. I have another call I have to hop on, but I will send you all of that info over to your email as soon as I get a chance. Latest by like late afternoon. And then it'll have everything on there. If you need anything else, just shoot me an email or just message me on Instagram, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But yeah, outside of that, I'll send you another Zoom invite for same time tomorrow. And yeah, that'll really be it. It's just you pitch me, and then we have some role play fun and see how it goes, baby.
Cool. Sounds good, man.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you same time tomorrow, brother.
Yep. See ya.
All right, guys. So overall, now seeing the different stages of the interviews, I would say as far as the structure of the interview, there's introduction, there's a little bit of a rundown of the company. There's usually a point where they're really describing the role. There's usually a point where they're really asking you a bunch of questions. Those can, depending on the interviewer, those can really flip around. As far as the things covered in that interview is pretty standard. Sometimes I remember correctly, the way that this job was posted, there wasn't too much information outside of what was necessary to book the interview shared. So I think in this interview, a little bit more of it was around sharing the opportunity to the applicant. Usually it's probably a little bit more questioning than that. So overall, I'm going to give an overall rating for the interview. From the overall rating of the interview from the guy being interviewed's perspective, I would give it like a 6.8, maybe a 7. It wasn't, there was that one answer, or I'm sorry, the one question about the minimum daily calls or something like that, that really just like move the needle, probably not in the right direction, in my opinion. I've taken a ton of interviews, and I've taken them on both sides. Like, I've hired a lot of people into our agency, and I can almost guarantee, no matter what role I'm hiring for, if someone asks me that question, I'm not hiring them. And that, that's just a small slice of something that could just grow within your company. Like, month month in, month out, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, like, you're not getting the performance that you want out of the guy who was hired. So I would say 6.8, probably around there. Everything else, there was nothing in the interview that really stood out to me. What I did like conceptually, I liked how the guy being interviewed kept it short. He was quite direct with his questions and his answers. He didn't ramble. That's one thing that a lot of people mess up on, is they ramble. They get asked one question, they start talking about 100 different things. As a salesperson, I think it's very important to be able to effectively articulate ideas and concepts and all that stuff. So good on that. Let's list off the good things. Good things. Very direct, no rambling, and there wasn't any, besides that one question where he said, what's your biggest weakness, and he went back to something 2 years ago. There wasn't really anything where he did not answer a question straight on, which, in hindsight, if he watches back, maybe he'd be like, yeah, I messed up there. Okay. But besides that, good rapport in the beginning. Obviously, he had stayed connected to this guy on Instagram, social media. He had that in. Maybe that in was what even got him on the interview. There could have been other people with the same resume, if not better, that did not get the interview because they did not have that following, that connection from an in-person meetup. So that's really important and good that he established that. Also good was some of the questions that he was asking to further validate the role. From just watching it happen, and being able to pause and get feedback, I don't feel like I have complete clarity, or I don't feel like I would have complete clarity as a sales rep to make a decision on this, especially if I have something else lined up or currently going. If I'm in a position where I don't really have too much to lose today, I would be less concerned with it. Meaning, like, if I was in another job and I was already making a ton of money, I would probably want to do more due diligence than what was done. Now, there is, if you heard it, there's this interview, then there's the role play, and then there's the one with the CEO. So there's more chances to get information, but ideally we walk away from this first one with a little bit more information, especially because we are going into the second and third round. All that being said, another good thing was he was taking other interviews, and he made them aware of that. That's always a good thing. You want to show that, yes, there's other people interested in me. But yeah, so those are the good things. The bad things, and bad is subjective. Right off the bat, I just feel like the guy interviewing had a total upper hand on the perception when it comes to the video or not quality, potentially the quality, but the appearance on video. And that's so big, man. Like, I know some guys that have professional studio setups, that just immediately on interviews, on sales calls, they are perceived to be higher status, they're trusted more, they're liked more, and they get better results because of that. Despite anything sales related, simply that trust through visuals is established by putting some effort into the background. I am not on an interview right now. Would I take an interview with this background? Probably. It was better before it was nighttime and there's a reflection now. Would I take an interview wearing what I'm wearing? Probably not, especially not a baseball cap. What I'd probably wear is a collared shirt, which the guy being interviewed didn't have a shirt on, but it was a collared sweater. So it wasn't bad. Maybe could have been a little bit better. I probably would put my hair back, no hat, make sure my lighting is good, and that kind of stuff. Making sure your audio is good, making sure your lighting, audio, video is good. So, bad thing number one, the light just it looked a little bit cheap to me. Those lights can be, very effective in creating a certain visual appearance if done right, but if done wrong, it can look a little cheap, a little bit forced. So that's all I'll say on the appearance. Also, the last thing is the framing. Like if you're looking at me in this video right now, I am taking up a majority of this frame. It's kind of intentional. I could easily be recording this like this. And the guy on the interview was doing it kind of like this. And dude, I mean, if I don't want to like say too much, but the guy being interviewed, I've met him in real life. The guy is he's a big dude. So, yeah, I would just, make sure that whether you can tilt the camera, whatever it might be, external camera or laptop screen, you may not have the option. In that case, try to figure out how you can fill up more of the screen. This virtual sales stuff is, it is a little bit more laid back at times, but I feel like, if you think of an in-person sales rep at a car dealership, a furniture store, I don't know, like a luxury jewelry store, like they're always dressed with, collared shirt, sports coat, potentially slacks. Like they're dressed nice. They're groomed, hair back. You don't have to do a lot of that in the high ticket space, but if you do, you will stand out. So even something, man, like I don't want to tell anyone to wear a hat during an interview, but if I took an interview with a plain black hat, same background as earlier without this reflection, and a polo, would probably do the job. So anyways, that is all I'm going to say on the appearance. The other bad things, I would just say what I mentioned before, the pairing of this more reserved, conservative energy that I embody myself naturally, and that like not like willingness or seemingly not having willingness to want to go above and beyond and really make a difference in this company is just it's a bad pairing. That one question that hurt my heart, the minimum question, is not good. I would say the other thing is just not driving next steps at the end of the call. That's something you always want to try to do. And I'll throw this in there not because it was bad, but because I know how beneficial it could be. But not doing more research on the company, maybe he did it, but not bringing that up. One way to like really stand out on interviews is to like literally just do a little bit of research on the company and bring that up and like plant it in pieces of the interview that show yeah, I did research and I took time and effort to study before I came on and took your time as an interviewer. So the bar in this remote sales space, guys, is super, super, super low. If you can just, and a lot of it comes down to effort, like the appearance thing, the angle of the camera, the background, the shirt that you wear, effort. Doing research beforehand and bringing that up in the interview, effort. That's one thing where you can really easily separate yourself. Besides that, I don't want to make it all bad because there were some good aspects of it. I mean, ultimately, someone else got selected for the role, so there could obviously be improvements. But besides that, I'll make this the last thing. I would probably just instill a little bit more certainty to the sales manager that despite me not having worked in this industry, despite me not really knowing much about the industry, I am confident in my ability to learn and ramp up to perform just as you would expect your sales team to perform, if not better. And there were some questions or some answers to questions in there where he mentioned, I turned down this offer for day trading, which is fine because I'm not a trader. I can't remember exactly what he said, but the idea was I turned it down because I don't know how to do the thing. And I wasn't sure if I could sell it or if I wanted to sell it. And that in my mind kind of instilled, and I mentioned it earlier, it's like, it kind of says, I am not 100% certain that my sales ability can make up for the lack of industry experience, which, it's always good to have industry experience, but like in a situation like this, even if it's not your dream job, man, like we were talking about it earlier, you want to not shoot yourself in the foot. You want to not say too much. You want to make sure that you don't put yourself in a corner to be perceived in a way that you don't want to be perceived. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. And overall, guys, if this is like your first intro to like interviews in the high ticket space, this is as far as like the interaction back and forth, this is a pretty standard interview. They're not super high pressure. Maybe up towards the other rounds, there might be more pressure, maybe for like a higher, more validated role, maybe higher pressure, but they're usually pretty laid back. They're very results driven, man. So if you can come in, be cool, confident, competent, you'll get a lot of opportunity in this space. Besides that, if you watched all the way through, I do appreciate you watching. There's so much nuance to this industry. There's so many ways that as a sales rep, you can take advantage of opportunity or be taken advantage of. And, my job here is to help you not waste your time and get as far as you can, as fast as you can, without experiencing all the drawbacks that the industry has. So, and then really quick, like to talk about the role that was presented here. I said it a little bit before. This role, though, is it's kind of an iffy role. I wouldn't jump from something super proven to test the waters in this role. I would use this as a stepping stone to get into the industry if you're in a position where that makes sense. And I would make sure that my expectations are managed. After this interview, I would definitely ask more questions, whether it's email or on the next interviews, to figure out more of what's actually happening day to day in the company on a week-to-week basis, commissions being earned for what products are being sold to who. So analysis on the interview that was conducted, analysis on the actual opportunity. Again, it's a little bit of a different one. But yeah, guys, I mean, if you found this valuable, I appreciate you watching again. Please go down, subscribe, like, leave a comment, share it with your friends that can't get jobs. And if you're looking for more like in-depth help like this in my sales community, I work one-on-one or in small group setting on exactly stuff like this, help you put together your resume so you get the most opportunity with these opportunities. And then we post very frequent jobs, like pretty much daily, multiple times a day sometimes. So if you guys are looking into the high ticket sales industry, go to the description, check out the links, or just check out some of my other videos. And if you made it this far, thank you. I'll catch you guys in the next.